I was looking forward to Black Myth Wukong since its initial announcement, and seeing how it's doing right now in terms of sales and popularity is actually pretty absurd. Like, over 10 million copies sold, Chinese developer Game Science came in swinging. Now, I don't think I had the same experience a lot of other people had. There's a lot of people calling this game a straight up masterpiece, and while I think it's fantastic, I did not hit the credits completely blown away like I was with the recent Lies of P or Stellar Blade. This game honestly reminds me a lot of Stellar Blade, where it has a lot of Souls-like mechanics when it comes to the combat system, but the game's its own thing. It is not a Souls-like, it's not trying to copy Dark Souls, and here with Wukong, the combat system and bosses in particular really do shine. The amount of bosses in this game needs to be commended. Like, there's an absurd amount of bosses here, almost like the entirety of the budget went to the bosses and the graphics. But I want to go into my personal in-depth review of Black Myth Wukong and let you guys know how my experience went and everything I thought was absolutely fantastic about the game, and then the few things I thought weren't really up to my standards. So to give you a rundown of how you're going to be playing this game, you know how I said it isn't a Souls-like, so one thing that's cool is you're going to be getting XP with every enemy you fight, and you're going to be getting skill points to go down your skill tree. Now every time you die, you're not going to have to go back and get your XP, and everything stays where you're at. So let's say you're dying because the game is slightly challenging in many ways. You're going to go back and have the exact same spot of XP, so you could just continue to gather XP and grow levels. So honestly, dying over and over and going through areas, you're just going to keep getting stronger as you do it. Like I said with the skill tree, there's actually a lot of RPG mechanics here that I really enjoy. You could build your Wukong with a bunch of HP and defense, you could give him a bunch of attack and crit rate, and then you could also go in and edit all of your stances. There's going to be 3 different stances which kind of change up your combos. Now you're always going to have this same light attack combo that I don't have too much of an issue with, but I do feel like it makes a little bit of an imbalance with the bosses because you're going to want to get this entire combo out most of the time. And the game even tries to help you out by letting you continue your combo even if you dodge or perfect dodge. Like, you'll just continue the combo from where you left off at if you do it directly after dodging. But the problem is the bosses are still a little too crazy to where you're not really going to get your full light combo out with Wukong. A lot of times you will if you immobilize the enemy or find a really good opening, but at the end of the day, the bosses are a little too crazy and this light attack goes a little too long. Especially right in the middle where he does all his little swings, you're going to be stuck in that animation and you cannot dodge out of it. This game gives you a lot of insane tools to use though. Like, you could spawn in 12 of the monkey homies and they'll all follow you around and beat up everything. Like I said, you could immobilize enemies. Your parry in this game is you turning into stone and just completely knocking the enemy away. There's a lot of really cool mythological things you could do in this game. Again, you're playing as Sun Wukong. It's basically the Journey to the West story. For as strong as the enemies are in the game, you are never going to feel weak as Wukong. Now, this game honestly feels like a boss rush. Now, again, I said I'm commending the amount of bosses they have, but I wish the exploration was a little deeper. So you don't have a map, which I don't have too much of a problem with, but when you don't have a map, you need the level design to kind of point the player in certain directions very naturally, right? Which this game doesn't really do. Which the areas are absolutely beautiful with the graphics on display here. Now you're gonna get lost a little bit because of this no map, and there's like a mini boss everywhere you turn, so that's kind of where my love-hate with this game is. Now it's the majority love, right? I love bosses, I love games like this, and the amount of bosses, again, is really commendable because they're usually really detailed. Like, you're not gonna fight repeats, you're not gonna fight bosses that feel similar. They're all very detailed, and some of them even have their own interesting gimmicks or puzzles to them. They spent a lot of time on these bosses, but the problem is the game at times feels a little shallow because you're just going from boss to boss to boss. It almost feels like an old arcade game in that way, but with way updated modern graphics. Now, this wouldn't be too much of a problem if exploring was a little bit better, in my opinion. Like I said, I wanted to explore around a bit more and have the level design kind of push me in cool areas, but you're kind of just running into a bunch of bosses, and some areas even confuse you on purpose to kind of get you a little lost. Going through this journey, though, I was never bored upgrading my Wukong. There is an absurd amount of upgrades on this skill tree, and one thing I haven't mentioned yet is your transformations, which are just so cool. So all the enemies you're fighting, and specifically the mini bosses, most of them you're going to be able to capture and turn into. Just transform right into them, use one of their abilities or spells, and it's really cool. Some of them you even get to just play as them for like 30 seconds straight. And you could upgrade all of these, so upgrading all of your stances, building your Wukong stat-wise, and then upgrading all your transformations. There's a lot to be doing in this game as you're going through. So you're gonna kind of go from boss to boss, upgrade your Wukong, go to boss, upgrade your Wukong. Now the story is honestly interesting to me, but they kind of expect you to know it already. They don't really pace it and show the lore in a way where they're gonna explain it to newcomers, right? I feel like they already expect you to know the story, the journey to the west, and you're basically playing as Wukong fighting a bunch of crazy mythological creatures, which is totally fine, but at times I'm just like, what is going on? And I really want to know what's going on. So yeah, as much as I do enjoy meeting some of these characters along the way, specifically because some of the NPCs stay around and chit-chat to you every time you go back to them for new items, I wanted to know the characters and story a bit more. I wish the game explained it for more newcomers in a sense. So yeah, I think the biggest problem with this game is the pacing. It's just kind of all over the place, and most of the time you're fighting bosses. And you know what's kind of crazy? I bring up Lies of P again, not to compare games, but to just show an example of how a game will blow me away and how people are kind of calling this game a 10 out of 10. Lies of P was a game where every single boss was fun. Every single boss I was looking forward to and did not disappoint in some form or fashion. With Wukong here, there was actually a few major bosses that just drove me insane. They weren't super hard or anything, they were just either really gimmicky, there was too much noise on the screen so I couldn't see what was going on, but regardless, there were a few bosses I actually just could not wait to finish, and that is rare. I never really play these types of games and I'm like, get me done with this boss, I don't want to finish this. But no, for real, there were a few bosses that drove me insane from their gimmicks or mechanics, and then the rest of them were pretty fantastic. But yeah, the game was definitely not perfect to me by any means, and I didn't really go in with like the craziest expectations. I was just playing. But honestly, the combat system and the way the skill tree kind of develops as you go through the game is really, really fun, and I would recommend it to any action RPG fan, or honestly Souls fan. The game is not a Souls-like, but I would still recommend it to Souls fans for the boss fights. But yeah, I'm actually surprised at the way people call it a masterpiece, because I'm like, I don't feel like there's much cohesion here, right? You got a lot of amazing little things all around the place, but it kind of has to all go in a nice, beautiful circle, right? But this game, it kind of just all goes in a jagged line and eventually connects. So yeah, Wukong was an absolutely interesting journey for sure. I had a lot of fun, but there was other moments where I'm kind of like, what am I playing here? What is the goal of this game? So you're pretty much just going to go in for the boss fights, in my opinion. Yes, building the skill tree in your Wukong is fun with the RPG mechanics, but you're here for the boss fights, and the game did a great job in that way. I honestly was shocked with the amount that they had in this game and the detail of each individual boss. So that, again, for the 40th time I'll say in this review, that I totally commend. And yeah, guys, that was my experience and review of Black Myth Wukong. I'm really interested in all these games coming out from Eastern developers, because so far a lot of them just have been absolute bangers. Like, I would definitely say this game is still a banger. I don't know if I would recommend it at absolute full price, maybe like $10 off, but it's still a fantastic game. And overall, I'm really excited about all these games coming out from Eastern developers like Stellar Blade, Lies of P, and now Black Myth Wukong. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Let me know if you're playing Black Myth Wukong yourselves. Let me know if you're enjoying it, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time. Peace.